Growing up, I used to be a very, very extroverted kid. I was so outgoing. I was so involved in the church. I grew up in Hispanic Pentecostal church. So if you know, that environment can be very, very loud. And I fit in perfectly. I was in danza for many years. And just loved being a part of everything that I could. I was always the first one in class to raise my hand. I was always so willing to play kickball at YMCA. Everything that was going on, I wanted to be a part of it. And I loved socializing. I loved making friends. Early on as a kid, I knew I loved being in front of the camera and making videos and taking photos and editing. I want to say I learned how to use iMovie when I was probably around 9 or 10 years old. I just loved every aspect of it. And it wasn't until middle school that things started to change a little bit. I remember being in middle school, and I don't remember having a lot of great memories about middle school. It seemed like about that point in time in my life, things started to shift, but I was still a very, very outgoing, bright kid. There's just certain areas in my life where I no longer felt very extroverted. And then in high school, it just felt like everything changed. You know, you go into these new social class hierarchies at school, and you're meeting new people, and just so many things are changing. I do remember being in high school and I still loved making videos. At that point, I actually finally had a YouTube channel of my own. I would take my DSLR to school and literally record videos, and I loved it. I loved every aspect of it. And I had all these crazy ideas. I remember right before my quinceañera, I had like this whole series I wanted to do about recording the process that led up to my quinceañera. And I don't know, I was such a bright kid, and I had so many ideas. But in high school was also, it started somewhat in middle school, but it definitely continued into high school, where I just felt so oppressed by my peers, and oppressed in the sense of like just constantly kids telling me things like, oh, that's like the weird YouTube girl. I remember they used to like literally call me like YouTuber, like the weird, like, and not in like that's cool, like that's weird. I do remember towards the end of high school, specifically towards the end of junior year, it had gone to a point where I was sitting by myself at the lunch tables, and I still tried to have that courageous place in my heart where I was like, it's okay if I sit alone. Like, I'd rather be alone than be with people who are not really my friends. And I ended up going into my senior year into COVID. I didn't go back to school at all. The last time I went to my physical high school was early in the year of 2020. Senior year, did it online, which in a way worked out. I didn't have to sit by myself at the lunch tables anymore, but it also led to a deeper isolation. Even though we were quarantined, I still saw those old friends that I had once been around hanging out with each other and doing other things for senior year, you know, making the crowns, going to senior sunrise, and I was doing things alone. And it led to this really, really deep anxiety within me that became very difficult for me to even wake up and do online school. I just constantly felt anxious, constantly felt like the world was against me. And it was a very low point in my life, because not only was it happening at school, but pretty much my whole entire high school life at church was the same thing. And that, I think, hurt even more because church was supposed to be the safe space for me. But it just became a place that I hated to. I know there's a point, I hated to attend. There's a point in my life during those years in high school where I didn't even want to go to church anymore because I felt so isolated there. I even got more bullied than I think at school, because at church they didn't know I had YouTube. But I had kids that were just like, they would like laugh at me. They would throw paper in my hair, and just like, that was a different type of isolating experience that I felt, because I wanted so much to love the Lord, but I felt so isolated in the place that I should have called home. So when senior year was coming to an end and I was choosing the university or college I would attend, I decided to choose the one that was farthest away that I had applied to, and that was in Seattle. And if I'm being frankly honest, when I chose to go there, my plan wasn't, I'm going to go somewhere new where people don't know me and I'll make all these new friends. I was at a very low point. My thought process was, I'm going to go somewhere new where people don't know me and I can just be alone in peace. And I won't have people constantly making me feel like I'm so alone and feel so scared to even leave my house and go to the grocery store. Thankfully, I have a great God who, the minute before I even touched the ground in Seattle, had already ordained such a beautiful story for me there. Before I even got to the college, I already had a roommate that had reached out. She chose me. I said yes. And going into this, I didn't think we would be friends. I just was hoping we would be okay roommates that got along. And she quickly became my best friend. And to this day is still my best friend. We're going on almost 5 years of friendship. And that's one of those things that I know that the Lord so perfectly ordained for my life, was her life to be a part of mine. And in Seattle, I started to grow again. I started to involve myself in clubs. I was club president for 2 years. All the things that I had once done previously that I thought I would never be able to do again. I was starting to come out of my bubble. I started to connect with a lot more people. I was being social in college. I started attending a church out there. I had made new friendships at my so-called church, not at my so-called church, at my church out there. I had made my first ever Christian friend, Abby, and she is still my dearest friend to this day. She's even had the pleasure of coming to visit me home here in California. And I just saw the Lord move in a way that I had never thought possible. Prayers that I had prayed as a kid were now coming to fruition as an adult. And it was such a beautiful thing to witness. But I will say that even though I was in an environment where I was starting to flourish once more, I went through my own trials out there that were very, very difficult. I guess kind of things that you go through in your 20s. And it hurt and it stung. And so to give a quick recap, I was supposed to stay in Seattle for 1 additional year. But a couple months ago, I just feel like the Lord put it in my heart of like, you don't have to stay. You don't have to stay here when I haven't placed you to stay in an area where you feel so alone still. Yes, I had my best friend and I had my good friend Abby and I had other peers and I love them and I do. But there was something about me staying in that city that just felt so lonely. And I had built up this idea that the last year of being in Seattle, Tahina was going to move away and I was going to live by myself in a small apartment. And I was just going to lock myself up there and do what I needed to do to finish my last year of college. But the Lord so graciously just showed me that I didn't have to live my life that way. I didn't have to show anyone anything or prove to them that I could stay and do this. I could come home and that it would be okay. And so earlier this year, back in around, I believe March or April, I made the decision to not stay in Seattle, to not hold myself down in a city where I didn't feel at peace. And I came home. It has been just tremendously insightful and just such a big blessing the last 6 months being home. So imagine I left when I was 18. I'm now 22 and now I'm back home. And the same place, the city that I grew up in that once broke me and made me feel like I didn't belong has now become the place that I am rooting myself in and changing, not because the city changed, not because the people changed, but because the Lord changed something in me. And so I've just spent the last 6 months digging my claws deep into the dirt here because I know that this is where I can call home and this is where I'm going to grow and this is where the Lord just gave me that love and passion for him once more. And that's where he met me, you know. I agree in the sense that a physical place is not the Lord. The Lord is spirit, you know, and he's everywhere. But I do feel that the Lord has just allowed me to come home and to be here and to live in his peace. And within that, I have grown tremendously. I've seen it and I feel it. But an area in my life earlier this year, I had made a prayer board, and I had put something on there that said, old habits don't make new ways, something along those lines. And to be honest, I thought that looked like me maybe starting therapy. But earlier, about 3 months ago, I had been on this waiting list for a couple months now for a program called Celebrate Recovery at church. And I got off the waiting list and entered into this 6-month program that is very much dedication. There's like rules to this. If you miss 3 classes, 3 sessions, you are unfortunately kicked out of the program. You can redo it again, but it's a big time commitment and mentally a big commitment. I knew I wanted to do it because my mindset was, Lord, you have brought me back, and I might be out of Egypt. That's what my pastor told me. I might be out of Egypt, but Egypt is not out of me. So I want to take Egypt out of me. I want something new, something fresh, a new anointing, a new oil, or even the old things that you said that were for me, Lord. I want them to be true, And so, I've been doing Celebrate Recovery now for 3 months, and it has been a beautiful process. If you don't know what it is, Celebrate Recovery is essentially a recovery program. I know it sounds like it's more geared towards people with addictions, drug, alcoholism, and I think primarily that's what the program was made for, but now has become this program for all. We all have hurts, habits, and hangups. I don't know how to say it. It's something like that. But point is, we're all hurt humans. And that's why we need the Lord. And so this program is for anyone to just go into their past, dig that up, as hurtful as it can be, but to grow. And so I'm in my 3rd month of CR, and we just got into our inventories, and that first one was supposed to be easy, but it was so hard. And so I now see that the rest of this program is probably going to be a bit difficult for me, but I am so willing to do it if I can meet the Lord any closer and be the daughter that he's called me to be. And so in that first session, I realized how much of my past has really, really affected me in the area of my old churches and my old friendships from school. Just feeling so outcast by them and feeling that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't worthy, that something was wrong with me, that I was the weird kid no one wanted to be around. And I realized that I've taken that now into my adult friendships, and I'm constantly waiting for that other shoe to drop and for them to leave me. And I know these are all very deep and dark thoughts, but they are thoughts that have lived in my head for a long time. And with that, I have seen myself over the years become so extroverted, because what was once a place of light became a place of anxiety and fear that the world would hate me if I was truly myself. And so a part of me has felt that if I show people who I am truly, they're going to think I'm weird. But I could be so far from the truth. Like I mentioned, I have my 2 really great friends, Tahina and Appy, and they've seen the real me. Tahina has seen the realest part of me. I mean, that girl lived with me for 4 years, and yet she is still here. But even just taking the earthly aspect away from it, the Lord has seen me. And yet the Lord knew millennia and years ago that I would make the decisions that I have made, that I would be the way that I am, and yet he still sent his son for me. And I think that's something so special and so beautiful. But within the last 2 weeks of doing that inventory and realizing, hey, I have some deep rooted stuff that has really affected me in the way that I am, I think I should work on it and change it. I don't want to be constantly afraid and insecure, because now I've started to see how that insecurity within the last year has just penetrated every area of my life. I know with insecurity, we typically think of appearance, and yes, it's affected me there. I got eczema the last year, and that has been very difficult, but it's also affected me in the mind. I lead the youth. I have led the youth for a couple years now in Seattle and now here at home. And in that area, I've seen how I just can be so hard on myself. And last week, I was asked to do the devotional, which I've never been asked to do. And I was very excited, and I started stuttering. And I just, in that moment, so clearly felt like Moses with the stutter. Like, Lord, why me? You can't use me. I have a stutter. I can't talk to your people. I can't give them the message I want to give because I'm just getting so tongue twisted. And even in that, I was reminded, like Moses, when God told Moses, I chose you for a reason. I could have chose your brother Aaron, but I chose you. I want you to tell my people. And so I claim the same for myself, as that has just infected and leached into areas of my life of just feeling insecure. I claim that even if I struggle, as long as I'm doing my best, the Lord knows my heart, He can use me. And so this past week, the last couple of days have just been me talking with people and being honest and real and vulnerable and realizing I don't want to live this way. I don't want to be the same version of myself that loves the Lord but is so afraid to do what He's asked me to do because it's rooted in anxiety and fear of judgment and that this world will outcast me. The thing is, the world already outcast the Lord when He came around. They would outcast me too. And so even in that, sitting in that fact, I still want to be who the Lord has called me to be. I stopped making videos for a long time. I didn't edit. I didn't post. I just stopped doing a lot of the things I love because I got so lost in what the world would think of me. And so that is what this is. This is a rebranding, a fresh new start, to push myself to do things that have scared me in the past and to not let fear get in the way, because I've realized that fear is actually disobedience to what the Lord has called me to do. And that is what scares me. I wasn't scared of my fear or anxiety because it scared me. But now I'm more scared about being disobedient to the Lord than to be scared of this earth. And so I'm starting a new series called Something New. This video is going to be titled Something Had to Break, because something did have to break in me for me to realize this world does not matter. It does not matter what they think or say about me. It is all that matters is what the Lord knows and cares about me and what He says that I am. And so this is going to be posted on Christmas Day, and my first episode of Something New, a series where I tackle things that have challenged me in the past and that scare me. First episode is coming out January 1st, titled Something New, episode 1. I already filmed that first episode, and it was chill, laid back, tried maybe one new thing, but also showed you new things in my life that have been added in the last month that I never thought would become something real. I never thought that the Lord would be able to do, because I just so little faith, right? And so I hope that as we delve deeper into this series, I get to do things that I'm even more afraid to do, but that can glorify the Lord. I've already thought up an episode that I want to do in the future. I've just loved the idea of evangelism and going out on the streets, but it's something that has scared me. And I did it once a couple months ago, and it was terrifying. But I want to do it again because I have a calling, and the Lord has called me to go and make sheep, to go find those broken people and let them know the good news. And so that's what this new series is going to be. I hope you'll stick along. Merry Christmas, and I'll see you on January 1st.